Thank you for reading that. Yes, so my name is Martha Bird. Thank you so much for taking your Friday evening to come out here to listen to this talk and to see this art exhibit. It means a lot to me to have everybody here. So we did the opening on September 5th, and I did a talk at that point, and that was talking about what was actually in the gallery, the different art pieces, the willow, how I prepare it. That was the stuff I talked about then. At the end of this presentation, this one's a little bit different. You can ask any questions that you'd like. So you can ask about sculptures, you can ask about my willow preparation. It's just that I won't be covering it while I'm talking. But the plan is to have a robust Q&A at the end. So the title for this kind of says it all. It's Ancestry, Disability, and Mental Health, Connecting the Knutkorg, and I know I'm not pronouncing it correctly, basket to Duluth and the art practice of Martha Bird. I want to say before we get started that this is being funded by the Minnesota State Arts Board grant, and that is thanks to the legislative action that was taken by the residents of Minnesota to vote for part of our sales tax money to go towards the artists. So that's thank you to the voters of Minnesota for providing this. So this, for those of us that are in basketry, what these images are actually just the start of a basket, the base of a basket. But I'm using this slide here to just talk about the interconnectedness of the information you're gonna hear: disability, mental health, basketry, the Swedish basket, my sculptural basketry. They're all very interconnected, and my life kind of encompasses the history of basketry. And I'll go into that a little bit as we talk. So that first part, ancestry, one of the questions that people asked me when I was here for the opening was if I had any connections in Duluth. And I said I have very deep connections in Duluth, even though I'm living in Minneapolis. So the level of relatives that were my great-grandparents, they came from Norway and settled in Duluth, and they were prominent citizens here. And this is a map of all the places they've lived. So I'm hoping you recognize this is the city of Duluth. Do you recognize that? Okay. Good, we're on a good start.
All those streets when they were living here?
They had these addresses. Yes, so I was able to go find a lot of the houses, and yeah, so I do have a connection here. And also you'll see over on the table, there's a little book about the Gunflint Trail, and some of you might recognize that book, and that was written by my mother's cousin, and they lived up in Grand Marais and up on the Gunflint Trail. So that is the addresses. So my great-grandfather, the picture that's on the floor there, that's my great-grandfather. His name is Jens Floten, and I know everybody has different ways of pronouncing that last name, F-L-A-A-T-E-N. And so they were a very musical family here. They all were musical. He in particular was a conductor for the 3rd Regiment Band, and his band was invited to play for Teddy Roosevelt's inauguration. So on the back table over there, we have his baton. So you'll see in there that he's holding a conductor's baton. We have the actual baton over there, and then his tuning mouth organ that he used to tune things for the band. And then those are his brothers and various photos. So the St. Louis County Historical Society owns all of that. And then at the UMD campus, they have a book with all the newspaper articles and everything. So it was funny when I think probably 3 people asked me, do you have any connection to Duluth? I'm like, yeah, I'll cover it in this talk. So that is the family. This is my immediate family. So my grandmother there, that is Jens's daughter. And then we have my mom, and then the 3 of us girls. I'm the blonde hair, blue eye on the end. And then the cutie patootie in the middle is sitting in the back. If you'd raise your hand, she's still a cutie patootie. And she's here. here, and she's so kind. We've had different of us have owned different things in the family, so she's bringing things that that have been in her possessions or other to donate, and we're meeting tomorrow with the St. Louis Historical Society to further donate to this collection. So there's Grandma, and you'll see she has a pin. Can anybody read what that says?
Yeah, it's good.
That's right, and so you'll see that pin over on that table that I had saved that.
What's it mean?
I love you.
Oh.
So she used to say that all the time to us. And I think, I was the only one in the family that had the blonde hair and blue eyes, if you noticed from that photo. And so she sort of tunneled her Norwegian-ness through me. Like, I got some of the dishes, and she taught me some of the language, and I still know how to count. And then I inherited that pin that we'll be donating tomorrow. And then one of the family members, Esther Floden, she did copper tooling, and so our family owned these, and again you'll see the musical instruments, and then lamps, pictures for the wall, a whole bunch of copper tooling. And so these I donated to the Historical Society as well, so that they could add to the collection there. And so you'll see that in the exhibit I have some things. I love to use copper because I know that that's a family history for us in the history of the artistry in the family. So that is kind of my connection with some of these pieces. And then there was something else I was gonna say about the family history. Oh, because they were all musicians, they were kind of involved in the precursor of the Duluth Symphony. So the group that they met with and were the musicians, they were consistent throughout time, and then it ended up becoming the Duluth. They came here in the 1880s. And then in the archives over at UMD that has all the articles, and I have copies on my computer about all the years of the different things. So this is Esther, who made those copper tooling, and this is her in what's the date? I can't read it. Can anybody read the date on there? 84. So she was 92 in this photo. So Esther used to play, like when the silent movies were, she played the organ for that. And then there was a place that had roller skating and ice skating in the winter, and she played the organ for that. And so she was living at King Manor, which is still, I believe, in existence, and she would play there. So the ancestry piece, so I was always taught that I was Norwegian because of blonde hair, blue eyes. They called me the Scandinavian. Is that a phrase that you guys hear? Yeah, Scandinavian. With my grandfather called me that. So at one point I decided to take my DNA test, and I know it's going to be predominantly Norwegian. I'll do a little side note here that the art, the technique, the basketry technique that I really enjoy is a spiral weave, and it comes from France. And people, they really like you to have cultural congruency with the art that you do. And so people would say, when they'd hear it's from France, they'd say, "Are you French?" And I'm like, "No." And then this basket that I did the apprenticeship for, I got a grant to make this Knutkorg. That's what I call it. It's not how you pronounce it, but the Knutkorg. I got the grant for that, and it's a Swedish basket. But I kind of fudged the grant wording because the Norwegians have their own version of this basket. So I said I was doing the Norwegian, to be congruent with my ancestry. So I got my results from the DNA test.
Look at that. Oh my gosh. Wow. You look like you're from France.
And I'm like, what? I'm French? Like, that was never talked about in the family. And then I remembered, oh, my dad's mom, we called her Mimi, French Canadian. So I remembered that. And then the second was Swedish, and it's like, the Norwegians and the Swedes, there's a little friction there.
Yeah.
Like, Swedish? And then how much of Norwegian am I? 8%? So I just found that super delightful because the Perigord weave, the spiral weave that I do is French. And then the Knutkorg that I'd gotten and I was doing the last 7 months was Swedish, and I'm like, yes!
There's 60%.
I'm congruent.
You're doing the whole time.
So the Swedish side, this is Matilda Floten, and she's where that Swede blood comes from. And she was famous for her artistry in her own right. So not only do we have her husband, Jens, who everybody would talk about, collect and all that stuff, she does embroidery. And so when I learned about the Swedish, started kind of exploring, and there's this saga. Has anybody heard of that? It's a Swedish, quite famous story. Anybody? Raise your hand if yeah, Jeffrey? So there's this here, and if you look on the bottom is her name. I'm going to show you a tapestry. It says embroidery by Matilda Floten. And so then we kind of dug through, and inside the book is this scene, which they said the embroidery was about. And then we found this tapestry in our home. It's big. That's a bed. That's Mary. What size bed is that?
It's a queen size.
A queen size bed. And so it's a very large, beautiful tapestry that Matilda did. And we have don't we have an authenticity certificate or something? I don't know. But her name is connected. So she did that. So there's my Swedish side. And then this is a bed cover that my mom uses. My mom is 94, and she has kept this with her wherever she's been in any house, and this is her main cover on her bed. And Matilda was doing that on the boat when she came over. And it's still in great condition.
Is it wool?
I don't think so. I think a cotton kind of fabric.
So that's my Ancestry piece. So later there can be questions. And then on the table over there, you'll see things connected to the Ancestry. The original photo of Jens with his 3rd Regiment band is over there, his conductor baton, his mouthpiece, his cane. He had a cane that he used, and the cane topper is over on that table. It's ivory, carved out of ivory. And we always knew it had this animal on the top. And when we were here last night for the rehearsal of restoration, 3 of the students from UMD were here, and they're like, that's our mascot. That's our bulldog that's on the cane topper. So you'll have to look at that.
So do you know why there's a snake wrapped around the wrapper over the bulldog?
No, do you?
No.
Do you have a story about it? No, because we don't know. I know.
Looking at the anatomy, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's cool.
We didn't even know it was a bulldog. So yeah, so definitely we don't know about the snake, but we're kind of curious about that. So
the snake bulldog thing is weird.
It's weird.
It's just weird.
It's just
That's
weird.
all there is to it.
And that could just be our
The
family.
wrapper around the bulldog is really strange.
Yeah. So the cane topper is not at this time going to be donated to the family's not ready to let go of it yet, but the other items over there are. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit of talk about basketry, and all of these topics I know a lot more about. So the oldest basket was discovered just a couple years ago. It was found in the Judean desert. The conditions were just right in this cave. It's 10,500 years old, and it's the oldest intact basket that there is. So we're talking Judean, yeah, the Judean desert. So we're talking about, basketry is around the whole world, that it exists in every culture, and it goes back to the First Nations and the first people, and probably they looked around and gathered whatever vegetation they had, maybe looked at the bird nests, maybe saw the intertwining branches, and they created things that they needed in their everyday life. So now we're going to talk a little bit about disability and mental health. So basketry in the mental health world goes back a long way, and I'll go into that in a minute. So I'm going to give you, this is my nutshell version of my life. So I was educated as an RN. I was working and I injured my back when I was working as a nurse when I was 28. The doctor put me on bed rest and said, wait for it to heal, just stay in bed. I was on modified bed rest, so bed, doctor, I could get up for that. So I was on bed rest for 2 years, and after 2 years and a lot of discouragement, a lot of mental health, depression, and isolation. At the end of that, I said, forget it, this is not working. My back is not getting any better with rest. And so I decided to just take a basketry class. It was the heyday of basketry, so they had guilds everywhere. They still have guilds, and we have a audience member tonight who's the co-president of the North Shore Basketry Guild. Did I get that right? If you'll raise your hand. So anybody has interest in basketry in this area, Mark would be the one to talk to. So back then in the 90s, I just happened to take a basketry class. I loved it. I dove in, took class after class, and what do you know, I was walking, I was socializing, I was moving my body, and I basically rehabbed myself without knowing that that's what I was doing. So I decided to look into other holistic methods, and I found that it was helping my back. And so then I went back for my master's degree in holistic health. And so now I'm a board certified holistic baccalaureate RN. I don't know, it was on that first slide. I have all these credentials, but it was basically because it helped me. So back in World War I, it was the first war, I believe, I'm not a history buff, they were using the machine gun. And so with the machine gun and then the extended amount of time that was spent in the trenches, there was a lot of trauma that happened with that war, and there were so many soldiers that were coming back with, at that time they called it shell shock, and just really disabled by the experiences they had there. And so what they would do is they'd come back, and there would be, they called them reconstruction aides, and they were the civilian women that would come in and work with the soldiers basket weaving to try to re-engage them in life. It's not that they were trying to train people to be craftspeople. It was they were using it as a technique to become involved in the community and kind of leave what's going on in their mind to do something. And then that soon turned into the field of occupational therapy. And they had that as their symbol for many years. These are the reconstruction aids. And so the theme or symbol of OT was basket weaving because of the health benefits. And this slide I thought was really interesting because this was over in Transylvania. So it happened across the ocean. It wasn't just the United States that this was happening in, that they were using basketry. And then this is an example. So we have our Fort Snelling down in the Twin Cities, and they have in their collection down at the Historical Society, they have this basket, and this person was very highly skilled by looking at this. And then there's the story of Angus McPhee. I love this story. So he was a guy tried to go to the Second World War. He was found unfit, and he was diagnosed with simple schizophrenia, which a lot of people, that was kind of the catchphrase at that point, was simple schizophrenia. He was institutionalized for the next 50 years. And he died there. That was the rest of his life. And he was a selective mute, so he chose not to speak to anybody when he was there. But what he did is he walked the land and picked the grass and wove it. That's what he did every day. And he wove it with his hands, and he made blazers and bonnets with beautiful flowers and trousers and shoes. And he'd make it, and then he'd drop it and just walk away. You know, so he'd be walking and weaving, he'd finish it and drop it and drop it. And he did this for 50 years. In the, I think it was the 70s, there was an art therapist that happened to visit the institution, and she found one of these and she picked it up and she's like, what is this? And he said, oh, that's Mr. McPhee, it's what he makes. And so she felt she was discovering the art brut, if that's a word that you've heard before. It's art brut, B-R-U-T. I was just in France a month ago, and they just happened to have an exhibit of art brut. And what that means is it's people that are doing art because they are compelled from the inside to do it. No art training at all. A lot of them were in psychiatric institutions and were creating art that is this amazing art. So she called that art brut. So I have the documentary of this gentleman. It's really a wonderful, wonderful story. And there's a book that's been written about him. And then there's also a play and a movie that was made. So this is all just talking about how basketry has been helpful to different people. And then of course there's me, it helps me too. So it's something that, started with the feeling like it kind of saved my life, and it's wonderful to have a way to express myself. Okay, so then just a little bit about the creative arts. Hi, come on in. And we have drinks there too, so you're welcome to. So the creative arts, the basketry was under that category and was used with the veterans. And so this was just a study that was done about how the percentage of improvement that veterans have experienced from using the creative arts. So that's just some of that kind of scientific credentials. So for me, basketry involves the body, mind, spirit. It gets my body moving. It engages my mind because a lot of it is very difficult. I happen to really like challenging and difficult weaves, so it takes my full concentration. And then the spirit kind of gets engaged in that I'm taking a natural fiber and changing its form and creating something beautiful, and that's really satisfying to me. This was my very first sculptural piece, and I just was playing around and having fun. I was moving away from the functional. I decided I wanted to be an artist in 2016, and I thought, okay, so I have to listen inward, leave the traditional kind of modality, and think about what would I be curious about, what would I want to try. So I made this piece, and then I just kind of threw it. It was fun, just a couple hours. Threw it in the basement. I was done with it because I kind of looked at it and like, well, what the heck is that? So then I had a business mentor, and she was saying, if you want to be an artist, you've got to start submitting to shows, so that you got to build a thick skin. Like as an artist, you're going to hear a lot of no's, and so you might as well start and just get practiced at hearing no's. So the National Basketry Organization had an exhibit, and they were asking, and I called them up, and I'm like, could you like have a beginners, like it's not fair to put me with those teachers, and I don't know what I'm doing. Can't you, like I'd like a chance. Could you have like an emerging artist or a beginner? And they're like, nope, this is a one-drop deal. So I thought, okay, it's kind of ridiculous, but I'm gonna put this in. The curator was Lloyd Herman, and he was the founder and creator of the Smithsonian Renwick Gallery, and so he was going to be the one deciding what pieces were in there. So then I put in my entry. You had to set the price ahead of time. I had no idea how to do this. It took me 2 hours. I just went out in the woods and got some willow. So I was so bold to put a price tag of $120 on it, and I thought, oh, that's just so expensive. Like that's ridiculous to put that amount of money on. And you can't change it once you submit it. So then I got the response, and my piece was selected to be in the show. And then I was scared because I'd thrown it down in the basement, and I didn't know if it was still in one piece. So after I got accepted, I waited 2 weeks, and finally a friend of mine is like, Martha, go down in the basement and look at your piece. And so I did. I went down, and there was a little damage to it because, like I said, I'd thrown it around. So then I did some repair. Well, then I had to figure out how to safely mail it off, and then I had to pay shipping and all this stuff, way more than $120. I think it did $100 for the box that it was going to ship in, and then I had to pay another like $200 to pack it and ship it, and then you have to pay for the return, so anyway. So I get there to the exhibit, and there's all these pieces there, and not one piece was under $1,000. So there's my piece for $120. Then I was embarrassed on the other side. So you learn. But then it was a touring show, so it traveled to Peters Valley in New Jersey, and it was bought by an art collector. And so he had been the studio assistant for Helen Frankenthaler, which I didn't know that name at all, but she's a she's a painter. And so anyway, we had a lovely love story in terms of letter writing back and forth. He was my cheerleader, and so that was kind of how I got into it. And then this is a basket I made to kind of represent my mental health journey. And I was on all kinds of supplements, and the little jars are homeopathic jars, and it's actually a true basket. If you saw the inside, it's a basket. And the Minnesota Historical Society purchased that piece and has it in their collection.
$120.
120. No, this one was over 1,000. I learned. but I had to prove it to them why I was charging it. And so fortunately, I'm a very detailed documentarian. So I had kept track of all the hours I had spent, how much the medication, the vitamin bottles had cost. So I included that, so, you know, because I had to prove why it was the price it was.
That could be $20,000, $30,000.
Yeah, right. So this, now here this is the pronunciation. I'm gonna take the microphone off here for a minute, and I'm gonna put it close to the laptop, because when I was traveling in France, so one of my beliefs is wanting to learn the functional technique before I start messing with it, before I start, you know, pushing it and changing it. And so when I was in France to take the class, I mean, I'd already been playing around with the technique. I learned it from a book, which is, I do not recommend learning any basketry from a book. Usually you have a master sitting right next to you and you're, you know, doing it together and learning. So I learned it from a book, and I was just, you know, playing with it, and nobody in the world was teaching this that I could find. And so I had to learn it from the book, and then a person came up that was teaching it that I found. So I flew to France, like, no questions asked. I've got to learn the technique. The issue was, it was in French, and I don't speak French. So I just said to him, he did speak English, but I just said, go ahead and teach your class. I've got a good pair of eyes, and I'm just gonna watch what you do. So while I was in France, one of the houses I stayed with, there was a woman who was Swedish. And so I said Knutkorg, and she said, oh, Martha, that's not how you pronounce it. Okay, so I have her on recording saying it, so let me play that for you. People here might know how to pronounce it, but okay. Okay, let's see what the basket is.
Knutkorg.
One more time.
Knutkorg.
Thank you. Did anybody here know that?
Yep, no.
Yes, no?
So that's
From the other-
French?
No, that's the Swedish. That's the real pronunciation for the basket. Okay. So I've been using willow for a bunch of years, and I wrote a grant. I wanted to learn how to slice the willow. So I wrote a grant to get a wood shaving horse. And so I found a gentleman who would build one for me. And then I wrote another grant because I thought I might as well learn how to use the sliced willow. And that's this basket. So I hired him to be a mentor for me. He's actually on his way driving here. He wanted to be here tonight, but the traffic is really bad from the Twin Cities, so I don't think he's gonna make it. His name is Fred Livesay, and he teaches all over the state. He traveled to Sweden and learned from an 86-year-old maker of this basket. And the thing that's cool about it, I have written on the slide, tensegrity basket. And so that's what he said. He said, this is a tensegrity basket. And what that means is that you've got compression and expansion happening at the same time to hold the basket together. So pushing in and pushing out at the same time. So this is where I was gonna have him explain the origins of the basket. Because for some reason, when I hear, he's explained it to me many times, but I'll do my best to explain it. So, do you see that pointer up there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my relatives were born here in Kristiansand in Norway. The basket, and Mark, you can help me out here if you know anything more specific than I do, but it's a Swedish basket, but people used to cross this body of water, Gulf of Bothnia, oops, wrong way. They used to cross across here in the winter. So the Swedes settled over here in Finland, and so the basket came from Sweden, went to Finland, then came to Duluth. So there are deep roots in Duluth with this basket. And the way I understand it, and Mark, you can correct me, that there were 3 men in Duluth that were making these baskets over and over and over again. And so Mark he's been fascinated with this basket, and he brought some of the ones that he's gotten from antique stores. I brought one that Fred had given me that was made in Sweden 150 years ago. It's the black one back there. That was made in Sweden. It's been repaired. This basket can be continually repaired. Any part of it fails and it can be fixed. So the black one, the base of it has been repaired. So it's not the original. And I'll talk a little bit more, you know, when I'm done with the formal part of the slides. I'll go over there and I'll kind of talk about the basket. Mark, do you want to add anything about that history?
I only know of 2 makers, but I'll look into it.
Yeah, I think, if I remember correctly, I think Fred told me there were 3 here, but you know of 2 for sure, so 2 to 3. So I got a hunk of money to pay Fred and to pay myself to learn how to make this. So it was 7 months long. The first step was learning how to sharpen a knife. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm using a whetstone and sharpening my knife. And then I had to learn knife grips. You gotta know how to hold it. Then we had to go out and find willow. And we came across a spot on the Mississippi River that was, the city had just come down and mowed the whole thing down. So we came fortunately right after they did it. So I was able to pick up some of that willow. And then I started, so in the, right at the tip of my knife is a long piece of wood, and we made a story stick. And what he did is we took the model, was that black Swedish basket, and we did all kinds of measurements and made marks on this. So that piece of wood there, I wish I would have brought it to show you, I didn't think of it. It has all the marks of where I do the different carvings just based on the measurements of that basket. And then you'll see up in here I started making notches, and notches here where I was gonna carve. And there I've done all the carving. And that's so that you can puzzle it into shape. And then I'm starting to look at it and think about how is this gonna go together? And then you raise the sides. You notice there's 4 hands in action here.
Well, you don't want those corners to crack on you, do you?
Yeah. So here I was sliding in, I think, the last part. That's Fred. This is in my studio, so you'll see my stacks of willow in the back. Here in this gallery, I brought 1 bundle from each variety of willow that I own. So I have the different colors of willow that you'll see in the different work. And then, if you can tell, there's that square frame that you just saw. It didn't sit square on the thing, so we jimmy rigged this whole thing with a piece of wood that went all the way to the ceiling of my studio to try to make that thing dry flat. And this basket, the finished one, is on the black pedestal over there. That's the one that I made. So then the next thing was to make these side corners. You have to make grooves in the top and the bottom so that you can make these slats just fit right in. And the thing he kept saying every step of the way, he kept saying, now Martha, the whole thing could split apart at this point. Now Martha, you could split the whole frame at this point. You know, so that there was always this pressure of like, oh geez, I don't want to split it. And then he'd say, but it's fixable. Whatever you do, it's fixable.
You're working with green stuff here.
I'm working with, it was green when we picked it. Yes. Yes.
I'm sure it's fine. It's not
Weaving.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
This is your first corner panel, or stave as they call it.
Don't break
Push
it.
this part.
Don't break it.
Yeah. You're supporting the piece, so you just have to.
I'm nervous. Sliding it. Do I have the right corners in?
Yeah,
This
because
is-
remember the gray or the blue line stain. There you go.
Nice.
Nicely done.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
3 down, 10 to go.
A million to go.
So there I have the frame for the square one, and then I also have the frame for the rectangle. So in the back there on the black pedestal is the completed square one, and then on the table is the frame that I haven't finished that piece yet. So here I was gonna make the handle, so I took the willow and I split it. And then here's my wood shaving horse this one is called an English shaving mule. He made me a wood shaving horse first, and it didn't meet my needs, so he made a second one, the English shaving mule. So, yep, and there's the finished piece. He's a wonderful teacher, wonderful teacher. So you have the North House Folk School bulletins up in the window. He teaches some of those classes. So here's the title, and disability. Yes, this is where I was going to talk about, let me see what the slide is. Yeah, so this is where I was going to talk about who is doing it here in Duluth, and also in Sweden and Norway. Most people would be farmers, or and if they became disabled and they weren't employable anymore with the farming, then they might make this basket. So in Duluth, that would be the same thing. If they were farmers or miners and were disabled and not able to do that anymore, then they would be making the basket. And the two gentlemen that Mark knows, they were at the poor farm, which means they were,
Destitute,
yeah, yeah.
no family,
What was that deal with Chris Jensen?
cook home.
Yeah.
It was at the time.
Yeah, and I think one of yours is signed.
It actually has a mailing label, but I didn't bring that one tonight, but it does have a mailing label with the name.
Yeah, yeah. So these baskets are made here in Duluth, so you can find them in antique stores, except unless Mark gets there first. Or Fred, either one of them, they're buying them all up. But keep your eye out, because those were based in Duluth. So you can see why the title is what it is, because I have the history of disability, it helping with mental health, finding basketry, that's the history with the basketry. So that is the end of the presentation, and then I just wanted to tell you some of the things that were on that table. I think I'm not gonna go over there at that point. First, I'll just take any questions. So any of the stuff that I touched on that you're curious about, I'm happy to say more, and I see a hand back there.
Hi, so was there a specific use for the baskets, or
Yeah, so the question is, was there a specific use for the baskets, or was it for anything? I'm gonna say, yeah, go ahead.
They were oftentimes wedding baskets in Scandinavia, and they would have been filled with fish. So the fish, of course, had to be used immediately, but the basket would be remaining. So, and they were oftentimes the flatter pieces were rose mold, and most of them were painted, but not all.
Mm-hmm. Like the black color that we see
Yes,
back there?
yeah, and oftentimes then rose mold too, so one wonders if that didn't get finished or.
Yeah, because the ones that some of the research that I did was the Norwegian one was like a sending basket, and those I saw all the designs and stuff on them.
What
Yeah.
does sending basket mean, please? What does sending
It
basket?
was a sending basket.
Sending off, they're going somewhere and you're giving
Like a
them.
gift, yeah, like
A
wedding.
wedding basket is a good example. And then the ones from the poor farm were sold up at Gunflint Lodge, for sure. We have documentation of that. And Bruce Kerfoot, when he was interviewed just before his death, remembered coming down in the mid-50s and gathering the last dozen baskets because the basket maker had died or was more infirm. And he had just gotten his driver's license. So he made it down and came to Chris to cook home at the time. And got to it. It's called Chris Jensen Nursing Home, or Hilltop Nursing Home, Arrowhead and Rice Lake Road.
It's across the road.
And there's a beautiful orchard there. That's it.
It's not there anymore though, it's tore down. It was a
Except
big-
the barn is there.
Yeah, the main.
The main barn, there's one of 3 barns. The barn that remains has a floor made out of wood, 4x4s on end. So that it would be gentle on the cow's hooves.
Such heart. Such heart. This is such cool history that Duluth has. Denise?
This is really interesting to me because my grandmother was from that area in Sweden, just across from Finland. So
Maybe they had a basket.
I don't remember any baskets, but yeah, thank you.
The initial basket maker at Cookholm was from Finland, but he was a Swedish soldier. So, and then, I don't know why he came to the States, who knows? And wound up making baskets at Cookholm. I don't know the name of that basket maker.
Yeah, it's such interesting history. I might, because our family has a collection at the Historical Society, if I make another couple of them, I might offer to see if they want one. Just connect to my family. I mean, they've already, yeah, we'll see. What other questions do we have? Yes?
Are these type of baskets still made in Sweden, in the area of their origin?
I'm thinking that Fred went over there to learn, and I think he said it was maybe one of the few left, and he was an 86-year-old man that was still making them there. And he was either the last one or one of the few that were left. Do you have anything to add?
I think that's consistent with Jared Dahl from Ashland, went to Sweden to learn the technique.
Do you know who he learned from?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's in that same area of Sweden, so I don't know who the maker was.
And I know Fred got one of the, I don't know if you call it a grant or a fellowship, the same one that Cliff got, who's from here.
Fellowship.
Yeah, a fellowship, yeah. And so Cliff got it to go over and study music, and Fred got it to go over and learn this basket and bring it back and start teaching it to people so that it wasn't going to be lost. And so then.
So interesting that both music and other kinds of artistry came to this continent and were saved, and people from Europe are coming over here to learn their roots of music and to learn their roots of other kinds of. It's really interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Yes.
Probably because we value, our ancestors valued what they left behind. And technology kept moving, and so those people left it, but that was our ancestors, and we cared about it, so that's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. What else do you have questions about? Yes?
Going back to the pen, this is for your research. I was thinking, I wonder if it has any Masonic symbolism? Because a lot of the people from Sweden and Norway were Masonic.
That rings a bell to me. You're saying Masonic. It rings a bell. Marion, do you know anything in our history? Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell me
my-
what Masonic is again. Does anybody
My whole
know?
family were Masons on both sides.
And what is it? Is that one of those secret organizations?
Yes,
It is.
yes.
And secret why?
Secret club, just because it's fun.
It's
Be secret.
It's true.
It's fun to be secret, you
Yeah,
know?
It's not a religion. It's not a religion.
No.
They have,
Masonic Hall right up the street here.
okay, and they do like civic duties, right? I mean, they,
Yeah, but they also really like theater. It used to be very elaborate, theatrical, spectacular
Connection.
things that they would do in their lodges, secret ceremonies with flaming swords, and they would wave swords around and do I was part of one as a little kid. I was
Really?
just like, oh my God, this is weird.
so you were in the secret society, saw it, and now you're telling us
I was
about
a
it.
little kid, they were like, you wave the sword like this, and then they walk through the tunnel, and you're like, oh my god.
Wow, that's cool, thanks for sharing.
I do think
The devil's
standing.
Is that where the Grand Poobah came from? Is that from Happy Days or something?
No, that might well be, there could be something beside it, but.
So are there masons in Europe?
Oh, yeah.
The question is, are there
The dollar
masons
bill,
in
look at the
Europe?
dollar bill. Why is the pyramid with an all-seeing eye in the dollar bill? It's a Masonic symbol.
Is it? Oh,
Yes, Washington was a huge Mason.
So here's something to research.
Yeah, I know, it makes me curious. Yes.
Washington was
So
a
one
Mason.
thing I would say about, I don't know when that, snake and bulldog camping was made, but the symbolism of the 1800s, the snake had a meaning. If I'm remembering correctly, I think it was like never-ending snake, and oftentimes jewelry would have a snake, you know, covering its own tail, so it never
Ouroboros.
ends.
Called an Ouroboros.
Yes. So, but I don't know about the bulldog.
You guys are a wealth of wisdom, like I'm gonna have all this research to do.
I think you should go on Antiques Roadshow, bring that.
Oh, Mary Ann, you got that?
I like
It
that
lives
idea.
it lives at her house, yeah.
I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
They would shake their heads, I think.
You might not get on television, but you'll get an answer.
Might get something.
Caduceus,
If they don't.
that's two snakes. This is one snake. So this has to be a cobra, and the cobra's gonna eat that. This tiny little cobra's gonna eat that huge bulldog.
That'd be a great writing prompt, you know, to have the topper of the cane and say, write a story about this.
It's a, well, we think it's a bulldog. Looks like a bulldog.
And Mary Ann, just so you know, there's somebody in the crowd that would like to try that mouth tuner.
Oh, okay.
We're giving it away tomorrow to the St. Louis Historical, so we don't feel investment in having you not use it.
But I blew on it, just so you know, you'll get my germs.
Well, that's okay.
Mary Ann's germs are on it,
I
because she
am
did
not
blow on
afraid
it.
of germs at all.
I'm
I'm a
healthy.
pediatrician.
So anybody that wants to try the mouth organ, or to hold that conductor, it's really cool, that baton, it's very light. And you imagine, you know, conducting for Teddy Roosevelt with that baton. What other questions do you have? Yes?
So if I ever see a basket like that, they're all originally from Sweden, Finland, that area. So,
Or Duluth?
What do we
or,
see?
but I mean, so nobody else makes these baskets like this. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm
I
saying
see
is that a
that.
large
I need
amount
to
of
get
them,
it.
I don't know if I could say nobody else. What do you think, Mark? Should we?
I've seen a square basket in this style that was from Eastern Europe. But it was square. At the end of the willow segment, it was actually probably made out of pine. It actually had a carved tassel.
Oh.
And it was in a state of someone who was Serbian.
Okay.
And that's reminding me, thank you for saying that. That's reminding me, Fred telling me that he feels that this technique was common in Asia and China and Eastern Europe, and that because there was so much trading and traveling, that people would be, you know, trading those, buying those, whatever, bartering them, and that the Swedes had their version of it. That you would see this, that, yeah, so I'm remembering that conversation, feeling like the technique maybe
Yeah,
came
you
from.
wouldn't see a basket like that in Norway.
The northern version. Northern version.
The Norway one looks really different. That's the sending basket that is shallower and it had the painting on it. Have you seen those, Mark? Yeah. Did I say it correctly? Shallower
I
painting?
think what I've seen on the three maybe that I've seen is they're much wider flare.
Oh, sure.
So that it's an impossible joint to make anyway. I call it a saddle joint, because that saddle goes around the tenon. And it's just very difficult to make it in without it becoming kindling.
Do you steam the wood before you try to bend it?
No.
What Fred and I did, because we got it fresh willow, but then it took me a long time to learn. And so by the time we got to it, it was too dry. So what we did was took a garbage can lid and a sheet and folded it up and put the piece that was on there and then heated up boiling water. Poured the boiling water over it, wrapped it in and let it sit for 10 minutes. And then it was bendable. Mm-hmm.
The trouble with boiling water on a lot of willow is that there's so much tannin and that it irregularly stains the stem of that wood. So you get a splotchy black stain.
Oh, look on my frame and see if you see that.
I don't
The
see
rectangular,
that.
because
Yeah.
we did that with both of them, was we
Yeah.
did the boiling water. Yeah, what else? What other questions do people have?
You make your sticks for the frame.
The story stick?
Yeah, no, not that one.
The 4 pieces with the carvings in them.
I noticed they had knots, but they weren't peeled.
Yeah, the peeling, I did, let's see, when did I do the peeling? The peeling was really fun. I think I did it after that, because it will just naturally, because I carved into it and everything, it will just naturally start peeling off. So then I did, it was beautiful. I saved the bark and now I weave with the bark too. It's really beautiful. What else? Any other thoughts?
So ideally, you would harvest that green willow and you would make your basket while it's still green and wet. Why?
I would, yeah. Except, so when it comes to slicing the willow, you slice it green, but then he had me slice it down to 4 millimeters, which is for the sides. Yeah, which is for the sides. He had me slice it fresh and then let that dry for a week at the 4 millimeters, and then it starts to bow when it's drying. It starts to do this, and then I would come in and shave it more down to 2 millimeters. So we did want it to dry and get some of that out.
So the outside frame should be green, and those nice little corners should be dry.
Yeah, and so like what he was telling me I would ideally do is make a whole bunch of frames. And then I can just leave them, till I'm ready to weave. I've gotten 2. I've got the one I finished and the rectangular one. That's as far as I've gotten.
Are we able to touch them?
Yes, yeah, and is that okay, Mark, if
yeah,
people touch
absolutely.
yours? Yeah, so pick them up, look at them. You'll see that in the ones that Mark they have screws that are holding the handles in. What Fred had me do was use a hardwood, so I used bamboo, and I made pins that hold my handle in. And then the other variation is all the baskets that was specific to Duluth. This is my understanding, that the one specific that they made in Duluth, those 2 or 3 men, is they have a piece of wire on the bottom. And so in mine, I have a piece of wire, and that keeps that base together, so it doesn't, with weight added to it, it doesn't, flare out and have the bottom come out.
The slats are what you shave off on the corners,
The slats, what I call slats, are the thicker ones that are vertical on all the sides.
Where we watch you put that corner in.
Yeah, I call that a slat. And then the weavers are the ones that come this way.
And a more accurate word might be a stave.
That's right. Yep, we heard Fred say that. Stave would be the Swedish. Mine's the slang that means nothing. Just how do I describe it? Yeah.
What's the state?
The staves are the ones in the corner. Yeah. Yeah, those are the staves. And then the vertical ones as well. And those are, the corners. Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention is I do have a comment book up by the front desk that I really appreciate if people have seen my work, the sculptural work and/or the Swedish basket. If you wouldn't mind leaving a comment about any impact it had on you, any thoughts, any questions you're left with. It's always fun to read that later to see, people's feelings or impressions. Okay, I sense people are excited to get up. Thank you so much. What a great audience. Really, really good audience. Thank you.
May I blow this thing now?
Yeah, blow it.